All right, howdy. So, just to kind of catch everybody up here a little bit, I'm showing the back of the Roberts 770X in question, um, and I will show some detail up close in here in a minute. But where I started out with this thing was that it would run fine on the slow speed, which depending on whether you've got a sleeve. God, I hope I didn't lose that sleeve. On the uh, capstan or not, will do 1 7/8 and 3 3/4, or it will do 3 3/4 and 7 1/2. And then with a whole different capstan sleeve and pinch roller, you're supposed to be able to get 7 1/2 and 15. But it would only run on the lower side of the um, the switch. The immediate assumption was that the motor run caps were bad, and of course it's a multi-section thing. This here, which has this, I don't know if you can focus on that, but it has all of this in Japanese, and then various values. MP capacitor, Japanese value 2 UF, Japanese 0.8 UF, 1.0 UF, and then C, 350 working volts AC, 1968. So the way it was hooked up was it was set to the right of the motor here, which is on a bracket, and the wires here, which were hooked up to it, the best translation I found for these markings was red, white, and blue for the 2 UF, 8.8 UF, and 1 UF. So the top of the cap at that point was covered in so much wax that I couldn't make out any of the colors. But the red terminals were all attached to this one here, which does have a little bit of a red marking on it. And the yellows were all attached to this one down here, which has no apparent marking but might be white, and that's 0.8. And then, although it's impossible to tell except in exceptionally good lighting, this one right here does have a little bit of a blue dot next to it, and that's where the gray was hooked up. So gray I hooked up to 1 UF. Okay, so obviously not being able to find one of these things, I did some internet research and was told, well, what you need to get some of these fan run caps, and then just took them all together. Now, that wiring by process of elimination left green to be common, and it indeed was hooked up to this one here on the bottom, which also has a little bit of a red mark next to it, but because I had to scrape so much to even get down to see that far through the wax, it's hard to tell what's original and what's not. I really would like to go back and have a discussion with whoever picked these caps. So my assumption was that green would be a common tie point for all of these run caps here, and them not being polarized, they didn't care where, which side went where. So I put one side of all of them together, and I attached that to the green lead, All the reds went to the 2UF part of this. I did find one 2 section, which allowed me to cut down from 3 to 2 of these. So this is 1 and 2, which was 1 was gray, 2 was red. I don't know if you can see any of that there. And then yellow went to a 0.8. So that was how I decided to get it working again. In the process, I also discovered that there was a cam on the back of this lever assembly here, which has to do with the fast forward, and it was basically broken off into chunks. There's actually a piece of it still bolted to the, I wonder how reliably I can do this. There's actually a piece of it still bolted to the shaft. Okay, and then, sorry about the shaky cam here. I am not a filmmaker. But, where am I shooting? That thing there, can I get in the air? So that thing there is the back side of the fast forward lever, that little silver looking piece back there. And there's a chunk of a cam missing there, which makes a lever jump out and re-engages the wheel a little bit differently on the front. I'll show you that when I turn it around. But clearly, the way it just flat out stops, it's like there's some kind of a brake being applied or something like that. I just don't know. It's got a brand new belt, which I did route correctly, and that was a pain in the ass, but I got it done. And then I tried a couple of different rewirings of this, although I am now convinced these are where they're supposed to be in terms of matching up to this, and I just don't know that I believe this was the problem anymore. It's just that that's automatically the assumption when you have one of these machines, that this thing is going to be bad. I mentioned earlier that some of the machines had another one kind of stuck up here and only had a 2-section can down here. This is not one of those machines. Everything appears to be in this one big can, and this is it for the back of it. There's really nothing else electronic going on except that all these power connections are made here, and that also makes it a real pain in the ass, by the way, to test, because this plug here comes from the power plug-in, then it goes down here and meets this kind of octal looking thing, and that's what distributes all the power down to power switches and things like that, and trying to find a way to make that happen by itself was a real hassle. So I'm going to go ahead and stop here for a second. I'm going to turn it around so you can see the other side.